Hello, travelers out there. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Melanie Tucker. I own Rare Finds Travel, and I have a great love for Cuba. I've been there 4 times. I'm going back again in just a couple weeks, and I'm really excited to share everything that I've learned about Cuba with you on this call. So we're calling it a Cuba Meetup because that just sounds more fun than a Q&A webinar. But this is all about asking questions, all those niggling little questions that you have had. So I want this to be an open forum where you can ask anything, and I have a lot of questions that have been sent in to me because the whole goal of this call is to up your understanding of Cuba, so we can up your confidence, so that then you feel confident enough to say yes to the opportunity to go, because Cuba is just like such an incredible destination. And every time people often ask me, well, what's so special about it? They hear about the architecture, they hear about the history, but they say, like, what's so special about it? And every time I try to answer, I feel like a cliche almost, which I hate, because it's very hard for me to put into words. I mean, it's true, the scenery there is great, and just the whole vibe of Old Town. It's hard to find a place where there's more music. There's, you literally walk from one spot to the other. It's a cacophony, I think, is like the best word, right? It's, by the time you're hearing one band, there's another trio right there, and then there's someone on the street. It's just, Old Town is just full of music, especially at night. So, there's that, but I think far and away, it's really the spirit of the people. And I'm sorry, I know that's a cliche, but it's incredible. Like, I probably never met people who have so many workarounds, who are just so, spirited and warm and tenacious. There's none of this animosity towards Americans that some travelers are afraid there's going to be. And, that might make sense, but it doesn't exist at all. Excuse me. And so it's really a great vibe, and it's really encouraging to me when I meet people down there, when I meet the locals down there. I forget, because their attitude is so up and forward, I forget the hardship that they live under every day, and it's really uplifting to me. I know that's a little bit of a cliche, but that's probably the best way I can put it. So in an attempt to convey the spirit of Havana to you, I thought I would read a little passage. I'm a big reader. I have a lot of novels and memoirs from Cuba, and this one, Trading with the Enemy, by Tom Miller, is great. And if you'll bear with me, there's a little excerpt. It's less than a minute, and I thought I would read it to you because it gives a little bit of insight into why he went to Cuba. I went to Cuba because I was curious, because no one agrees on its strengths, because I read so much about it, because it's forbidden, because it's heartbreakingly lovely, because so many people have championed it while so many others have abandoned it, because Cubans have great music and aromatic cigars, because they've thumbed their noses at their former patron for more than 3 decades, because it's rich in literary tradition, because my favorite players on the Washington Senators in the 1950s were Cuban, because I'm an incurable romantic, because Cuban women are astute and alluring, because in the last 500 years of travel writing, few cities in the world have been so effusively praised as Havana, because Teddy Roosevelt led the charge up San Juan Hill, because I like The Old Man and the Sea, because I get a kick out of Desi Arnaz, because I like the twinkle in Fidel's eyes, and I've never been to a communist country, because I wanted to learn to rumba, because Columbus landed there, because it has hundreds of miles of unspoiled beaches, because of its mystique. So thanks for giving in to me and letting me share that with you. I just thought it was a real moving passage. I loved it when I first read it. So the whole point is, however you go, whether you travel with Rare Finds Travel or whether you go with another company or on your own, I really hope that you get a chance to go to Cuba. Okay, so right now we're going to answer some questions, and I have had so many Cuba conversations over the last week, and it seems to me that people fall into one of 2 camps. They either are excited to go, they're ready to go, and they want to know about the trip that we offer, or they have questions because they're still nervous. They have these niggling things that are bothering them. They can't get over the fact that their coworkers keep saying, but it's illegal to go to Cuba. They just don't feel confident yet. And so those are really the 2 camps. So what we're going to do today on this call is I'm going to briefly talk about the bones of the trip, very briefly, because this isn't to talk you into going with me, but I want to get that like make people know that right away. Then we're going to dive deep into about 10 questions that people have written into me and submitted. Some of which I've covered in videos, a lot of which are new and that I hadn't even realized people were wondering about. And then at the end, we can dive more deeply into some of the detailed questions that I have gotten about the trip. So the bones of the trip that we're offering at Rare Finds Travel, it's a 5-day trip, 5-day, 4 nights. And it's based in Havana. We have our casa right in Havana. So we have all kinds of incredible activities with the locals, all kinds of great food around Havana. You learn history, you learn Hemingway, you ride in classic cars, you meet with the locals, you learn about ration cards, you go into locals' homes, all kinds of things, lots of art, lots of music. And one day we go out into tobacco country. It's a small group. I'm taking no more than 8 people on the trip, and the trip is $2,800 per person. It includes almost everything except for gratuities and your airfare. Airfare from the US is $365 as of last night. I just priced it for someone. So that's the trip, the bones of the trip, and we'll go into detail more about it later. But now I want to dive into some specific questions. And the first question that a woman named Tara posed to me was, I'm not really a group traveler, so how's this going to work for me? And I thought that was kind of funny because, you know, I'm not a group traveler either. If you followed Rare Finds Travel for a while, you know my whole thing is to help people travel independently. You know, I've gone and, you know, vetted things, done travel research. I come back and lay things out like a candy store, and you get to pick what you like. And I set up your trip and you go off and travel on your own with my guides and support and drivers and whatever, you know, whatever you've chosen. But it's all to help you go off and travel on your own. But Cuba felt a little bit different. And I saw that so many people who were well-traveled were still very nervous about going down there because, of course, you have virtually no cell phone down there. You can't use your credit card down there. All of the tools that we usually use to, you know, self-guide ourselves when we're on the road, none of those work in Cuba. So there was a lot of concern about that, and also, you know, the policies and just the whole bit. So anyway, so that's how I set up this trip. But I am with you. Like, I'm a really independent traveler myself. And I was very flattered when I got my very first group together to go to Cuba. One of the things that we do when we get our groups organized is we do this whole countdown. So every week you get a different update on some topic about Cuba. It might be about the different currencies. It might be about Cuban baseball. It might be about the 500-year anniversary. It might be about getting your visa or travel insurance. It might be the quirks of the casas, the quirkiness of the casas, the lodging in Old Town. So there's a lot of topics, and every week we kind of feed you a different set of information. So over the course of a couple of months, you really get up to speed with this destination that you're heading off to. And then right before we leave, we do this Cuba kickoff. And that's when I gather everyone. I actually have them in my home, which is next door to my office here in New Jersey. So if you're in California, then we Zoom you in. But otherwise, which means electronic Zoom, not airplane Zoom. But anyway, so we get together for this Cuba kickoff. And what happened on my first trip, my first Cuba kickoff, 2 of the couples in the room looked at me and said, "We have never been on a group trip, ever. We don't do group trips. The only reason we did this trip is because of your travel style, Melanie, because they had followed Rare Finds Travel for a while. They knew I was very independent minded. So they knew for sure this was not going to be a lockstep group adventure. It wasn't going to be like that. It was going to be very kind of free flowing, and with a lot of opportunity to be intrepid. And so and also very unique, right? But they wanted this whole tone. They didn't want that lockstep group trip mentality. So anyway, so that's the reason they signed up. So first of all, that should be heartening. Number one, that other people felt the same way. So that's number one. Number two is that my whole tribe at Rare Finds tends to be a little more intrepid and independent. That's just the nature of the travelers who I attract at Rare Finds Travel. And out of those travelers, the people who choose Cuba are definitely independent-minded. They've usually traveled other places. They're really looking for something a little unique, and because Cuba is very different by its very nature, its relationship with the United States for all those years. So So, you know, you're going to be with pretty like-minded travelers. Having said that, I have booked in free time where you have completely on your own in Havana. Now, I had intended to be more like, I'll be completely transparent. When I first got this idea, I had the plan that I was going to be home base and set up the bones of the trip, some very, you know, key important experiences. And then I was going to give you all options for a lot of the time. But as it turned out, there's so many things I want to show you that we have a pretty full agenda. So having said that, you do have free time. The first evening, you have some free time in Havana, and we're right in Old Town. So it's very easy to step out of the casa and be right in Old Town. But also there's one whole late afternoon and evening. We have all to yourself. And of course we have a guide and a driver so we can accommodate, you know, tickets to the Alicia Alonso Theater or, you know, driving anywhere that you need to go within Old Town or within the Havana area. So, so you have that whole evening. And then the last morning, you have the last morning free until 1 o'clock. And we have some things that we love to do and that we recommend, like Jorge's bike tour. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but we have some things we actually love to do, but but it's totally free how you spend that time. So you do have some free time blocked in. And then also it's totally possible to say, to decline an activity one day if you want more free time. So say we're going out to Pinar del Rios, our day out in the countryside, and we're going to go to the cigar plantations. If you want to say, I'm not so interested in that, and you want to stay in Havana, then that is your choice, and that's a possibility. And the price on the trip is so great. You can really feel confident, you know, feel totally comfortable having the leeway to do that. But I mean, I would definitely encourage you though to go. To miss the day in the countryside would be huge. It's your only chance to really see rural life because the airport is 15 minutes from the casa. So you're really, you know, kind of in town right away. You're not seeing the countryside. It's your only chance to really see rural communities, to see the beautiful sprawling countryside, to go through the little towns, and their bus stop is literally like carts and drawn by horses. And so it's very, very interesting. And then of course the tobacco plantation is great. We had this whole experience that we call seed to smoke, where you learn the whole process of the growing and the harvesting and the drying and the rolling and even the economics of it, which are fascinating. Excuse me. So, so it would be really a shame if you missed it. And unfortunately, a lot of things are like that. Like, I don't want you to miss Anthony Bourdain's secret sushi spot. I don't want you to miss El Fabrico, this industrial space that's been turned into art. But any of these things you can bow out of. So long story short, you have lots of opportunities to be on your own during the time in Havana. And then when you do have free time that we've booked into the schedule, you can, we're there with lots of ideas. So you're never, ever going to be at a loss. One of my clients used to say my tagline should be, why sit down? Because if you have an hour, there must be 3 things that you need to do. So I really love to be active when I'm on a trip and to soak up all I can, because once I'm home and it's over. So that's my philosophy, but you know, you can cater this to how you want. So that's the long answer to the group trip, and I hope that makes you feel more comfortable. You will be with me, who is at my heart an independent traveler. Okay, the other question is, and this is, we're gonna go through this again, because I can't believe there's still questions like this, but many people are confused. Is Cuba still legal? Yes, Cuba is still illegal. I know it's confusing. I totally understand. There's all these articles online. The government has changed policies. There's a lot of people hear one soundbite on the news or in the newspaper, and some of these articles, the titles even can be misleading. So then there's a lot of public chatter about everything. So a common reaction to even my people who are going on my October trip with me is from their office mate, can you even go? Is it even legal? Like, people don't realize. So the official answer is yes, it's still legal. On June 4th of this year, the U.S. Department of Treasury issued an official policy. I have a copy of it. So if you want a copy, you can either find it online or you can email me, melanie@rarefindstravel.com, and I'll share it with you. And it's their official new Cuba policy. And it did eliminate some categories of travel. So that's when you heard it eliminated cruise ships and private boats and private planes and some other things. But it left other categories of travel still open and valid and legal. And one of those is in support of the Cuban people. And lucky for us at Rare Finds Travel, we have always traveled in support of the Cuban people. And without going too much in the weeds, in support of the Cuban people basically means 2 things. It means that you don't use any government hotels or guiding services, which we don't. We use all local lodging, guides, eateries, drivers, everything. And the other thing, the other requirement is that you have to have a full slate of activities that's in support of the Cuban people. So you're not going to go hang out on the beach. You're not just going to go on a drinking binge in Old Town. But I don't think people on this call, I don't think people in my tribe want to do that anyway. If you want to go to the beach, you can go, you know, you can go to Belize. Like you don't need to go to Cuba. Cuba is a whole cultural experience. So, we have a full slate of activities, not to worry. Things that support the Cuban people are really fun. Bike trips, it's cooking in a local's home, it's taking a dance class, it's listening to local music, it's shopping for cigars, it's learning the history, it's learning about ration cards, it's going biking, it's all kinds of things. Going to the gym, there's a boxing gym, you can do that. There's all kinds of things that get you involved with the Cuban people. Basically, if you are lodging, eating, touring with, driving with, biking, dancing, befriending the people in any way, you are traveling in support of the Cuban people. So it is legal, absolutely illegal, absolutely it is legal. And when your coworkers say that, say, you should check out the June 4th announcement. You should check out the June 4th policy. Okay, so question 3 is, so it's legal to go, but then what happens when you're there? There are 2 questions that are kind of related. One is, do the police kind of follow you around? Because people think it's this like police state almost. And do the police follow you around, and do you feel kind of hovered over? And the question is, the answer is no. I've been all over, not only all over Old Town, both alone and with my family and with small groups. I do these little small 8-person groups. Not only that, but I have actually even taken a road trip all the way out through the countryside, all the way out to Santiago, which is at the far east end. It's about 13 hours from Old Town. It took me almost a week to get there with different stops. Excuse me. So no, they don't follow you. In fact, you don't even see police around usually. You'll see police at the official buildings. You might see them at a bank. You'll definitely see them at the Museum of the Revolution, but they're not even really like on the streets. There's an organization, a policing organization called the CDR, but you don't even recognize these people at work, and they basically eliminate street crime. Cuba is one of the safest places that I've gone to. And I've been all over Old Town by myself, even at night. I've been in Central, so I speak from firsthand experience. So no, they don't. The police don't follow you around, and the associated question is access, because people say, well, it's this communist country. Does the government control what you can see and where you can go? And that would seem logical, right? But it absolutely does not exist. We are like any other European traveler, and all of us can go anywhere we want. We can go into the big cathedral in Old Town. We can go into the synagogue. We can go into locals' homes. We can go into shops. They have a lot of art studios. We even have this it's one of my favorite videos. We call it Behind the Padlock, because it's in a small artist studio in Old Town. And we actually got, like, in the back of the studio, upstairs to the actual, where they have their actual works of, their latest art that's in drawers there, and actually have the painting studio and some of their in-process works. So the artist actually works upstairs, and it's all padlocked in. So we actually get the guard to unlock the padlock, and we go in. So, I mean, we go pretty deep. We hang out with all locals, and we are in their shops and homes and cars, and we're all over the place. So no, there's absolutely no access issues. You can go anywhere you want, as long as to abide by the U.S. visa rules. You are traveling in support of the Cuban people and doing things to befriend and support the locals. Okay, so next question. Oh, this is a good one. So money. So many of you have heard, if you have watched my videos or done some research online, that there is no credit card use in Havana. Now, you might see an ATM machine, and they do accept European cards. So if you happen to be a person who has a credit card from from a British bank, then it might work. But you'd have to have a billing address from there. It'd have to be totally associated from there. Any of our cards from the US, they do not work. ATM cards or credit cards, they do not work. So that means that you are on an all cash basis when you go. That means from the time your plane takes off, you have all the cash that you need for your entire trip. until you come back. That includes, your lodging, includes all of your food, your drivers, gasoline, includes tipping. It includes that slush fund, which is, like mojitos and coffees and postcards and postage and that little stuff that just adds up. It includes gratuities, which are a huge thing because it's really important that we try to get as many kooks into the locals' hands as possible. That not only complies with our visa rules, but it also fits our personal philosophy. That's the whole goal of what we're trying to do. And from their perspective, we are all wealthy travelers. So, something that, might be a pretty fair gratuity for us means the world to them, makes all of the difference. So gratuities are really important. So all of these things have to be paid. So here's some things that you can do. If you book lodging on your own, if you book through Airbnb, they will take the money, you can pay online. They also have, Airbnb also has experiences, which you probably know. So they don't just have lodging, but they have these experiences, 1 hour, 3 hours, 5 hours, different things that locals host in town. And those are paid online. So any of those things that can be booked in advance and paid in advance through a third party like Airbnb really helps you cash-wise once you get down there, because it's just that much less that you have to budget and worry about. The second thing you can do is to wire money. Like even if you're sending through Western Union, which is the way they would get money down there, and there's a pretty hefty charge to do that, it's still worthwhile because it's one less thing that you have to budget for going down there, and one less thing you have to think about and have funds for. So sitting beforehand by a Western Union, some of the small boutique hotels, like there's one favorite of ours out in Vedado called La Reservis, they actually have bank accounts. I think it's in Canada or the Netherlands, I can't remember. But anyway, so you'll wire to their bank account. So there are ways that you can pay online beforehand, but the more you can pay online beforehand works. It also helps if you go on a tour. That's kind of a bad word, right? But like a group, like our little group. I would argue that there are a few companies out there that are still doing Cuba trips. I would argue that ours is really special. I haven't read any of them that really offer the unique experiences we do, and we really try to make it, again, at such an affordable price point, $2,800 for 5 days. So we try to make sure it's as lean as possible, giving you the greatest experiences possible so that you can really lavish love on the locals through gratuities and even donations if you're open to that. So going on a group trip really helps you because your trip is paid for in advance. So then the list of things that you need cash for is minimal. It's, like your slush fund, which again is your mojitos, your coffees, your postcards. Also, there aren't really cover charges for music in Havana. What they do is they stop the music every, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, and they pass the hat. So you're always putting, 5 kooks or more into the hat, and that can add up over every night over 4 nights. So this is what we would call your slush fund. So if you go on a group trip like ours, your entire trip is paid for before you go, except for I think there's one lunch that you pay for. There's the gratuities. There's the slush fund, and then it's just any kind of shopping you want to do. And shopping can really run the gamut between a $1 cigar, and a $100 cigar, between inexpensive local art, like even like little almost like little like 5x7s that are just done by a street artist, to some really fine art that's thousands of dollars. And then that's a whole nother story, because there's a whole process that they have that I learned on my last trip that I can share with you if that's your market. So anyway, so that's kind of how you manage money. If you're going completely on your own, you have a lot to think about. You can offload some of that by paying in advance by these techniques I just talked about, or you can sign up for a group trip, which has a lot of benefits, and then you have most of it paid except for some personal expenses. Okay, next question. Okay. Okay. People say, what's the most special thing that I've experienced down there? That's hard to say, right? Have you ever gone on like just an incredible trip and like, what's one thing? If you could pick one thing. I'm a real foodie, so it would be really hard for me to say that the food wasn't some of my favorite. In fact, there's a really special place called La Guarida. It's an old paladar. It's in a crumbly old building in Central, which is the area, the neighborhood just outside of Old Town. So it's a lot more, it's a lot grittier than Old Town. You're walking down the street, you would never guess that a 5-star restaurant's in there. But back in the heyday, in the 1950s, this building was actually the movie set for a very famous movie called Strawberry and Chocolate. It actually won an award, or was nominated, I think, nominated for an award, Strawberry and Chocolate. And today, this restaurant has taken over this space. And when you come in, it's, you know, it's like this crumbly plaster walls and this beautiful colonnaded circular staircase that goes up to the 3rd floor where the restaurant is. And you have high ceilings and beautiful tablecloths and old photography and great food and a good wine list and big doors that open onto balconies. And then on the rooftop above that, there's actually a bar way up there at the top. So you get some nice views of Havana. But the beauty is these rooms of the dining room, this old paladar. So the food, the ambiance, I love the food experiences. And there's also that really cool one that's Anthony Bourdain. He found this place way outside of Havana, but we do go out there one afternoon. And this is like an open air kind of shanty place, but the food is incredible. And it's a little fishing village. So the fishing boats come right into, they dock right up at the restaurant, and they literally hand their blackfin tuna over the water to the hostess she's actually the daughter of the owner, who takes the fish and drags it back in the kitchen, and they make it into sushi and this tataki dish. And then they also have cooked seafood like lobster and Caribbean lobster and things like that. But anyway, it's a great place. So the food is great. But if I think overall of like the most meaningful experience I had, it would probably have to be this biking tour that we do. There's a young guy named Jorge, who's a skinny little guy. He's about 26 years old. And he is a great cyclist, and he's also a great ambassador. And he runs something called a food cultural biking tour. So it's 3 hours of biking. You don't have to be super athletic. You're on, flat streets. And you cover, I think you cover maybe 2 miles in 3 hours, it's not a lot of distance. It's not physically demanding, but you are moving faster than if you're walking. So you cover a lot of ground. It's beautiful to bike along the Malecon during the day because it's not as crowded then, and it's just these beautiful sea views. You go into these little cafes, and he actually gives you the local pesos, because we're going to be dealing in kooks the whole time, which is the convertible peso, the tourist money. But there's also the local money, the local peso. And so he actually gives you local pesos, and you go on the local menu and you order some of their local favorites, pickles and bologna sandwiches and mustard and this special soup with corn cobs. And I mean, the food it's quite good. So you have this like little snack at this cafe, you'll do a juice bar, same kind of thing. But the most interesting piece is then you end up in the market. It's a big open air market, just like you would imagine from if you've traveled to like South America, where there's the racks of beef hanging up, getting ready to be butchered. There's, tables and tables of vegetables. It's a pretty typical South American market, although it's Cuba. So you go in there, and so you see the market and you see the vegetables that they grow and this and the other. But he pulls out his ration book. Now, I had never seen a ration book before. He pulls out his ration book, and he explains how the rations work for him as an individual and also for a family. And he explains like how the market works and how much you get, and he really puts it in perspective. So there is food, and it's not free, but it's very affordable, and they get it through these ration books. But when he explains to you like what they actually get, he says like he gets a chicken, like a little chicken, to roast a chicken, and he gets one chicken a month. Okay, one chicken a month. And as he said, he's like a 26-year-old. Anyone who has millennial sons, I have 4 millennial sons. So you know how long one chicken lasts. He said, like, it lasts me one night. And he actually looked at me. It was really like, my eyes welled up. He looked at me in the camera, and he said, Airbnb has changed my life. Because through that, he's been able to access travelers who can sign up for this tour. He gets paid in kook, so he actually has buying power. The kook has actually a robust buying power. So we can afford like a really good diet for the rest of the month. And that just shows you like what our power is as travelers. And it also gives a real accurate window into locals' life down there. So anyway, if I had to pick one experience, I would say that's the most meaningful to me. But they're all great. And I can remember sitting in Alicia Landa Theater, and it's this ornate architecture on top. It's like an old, beautiful theater like you'd have in New York or London. It's just beautiful. And then they had a modern dance troupe that came in and were performing for the night. So really, 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 really very special. Okay, the next question came in from Lucy, and it was about Wi-Fi. How much can I expect to be connected to home when I am in Cuba? And here's the answer. The first time I went, we had virtually nothing. That was 2016. The last time I went, which was this past February of 19, when I first arrived, I had service on my Verizon iPhone. Now, if you have different carriers like AT&T, that could vary, but I actually had service, and my clients down there reported the same thing. They had service at first, like nothing fancy, but I could send a text, I could receive a text. And that lasted for about 2 days. And then all of a sudden, I got this message on my phone that said that your service is prohibited, or this service is prohibited. Okay, so then at that point I was stuck with the Wi-Fi cards. So there is Wi-Fi in Cuba, and you can access it as a traveler. And so what you do is you buy a Wi-Fi card. It costs 10 cooks, so about $10, and it gives you 1 hour of service. And it looks like a little paper credit card, and it has a scratch off area with a code underneath. It's almost like buying a lottery ticket or something. And you take that card to the place to log on to your Wi-Fi, and it's for 60 minutes, so it's transferable, so you can use it for 10 minutes, and then you can log off with the code, and you can give it to your daughter, and she can log on and she can use the remaining 40 minutes, or you can use 10 minutes now and 10 minutes later and then a half hour the next day. So it's flexible in that way, but it's not flexible in that each card is associated with a certain geographic area. And I don't mean geographic area like Havana, I mean like a street. So the street that our casa is on supposedly had one of these areas, and I bought Wi-Fi cards for that area, and they did not work. We could never get them to work, and it was very frustrating, and I wasted money on that. So now what I do is I just buy them from a hotel, and there's a hotel that's very convenient in Old Town. It's called Ambos Mundros. It's the old hotel that Hemingway first lived at when he went to Havana. What was this? All those years ago. So he lived there. It's called Ambos Mundros, and on the ground floor, like right on the street level, it's this open air kind of beautiful lounge with old tiles and big couches, and they have a coffee bar there. So you can go in and get a little cafe, and you can log on to your Wi-Fi, and that's great. Now, the catches are this. You have to buy the card, and often the counter, I'd say maybe half the time, the counter that you go to buy the card, it's closed. Or the little shop in the hotel where you go to buy the cards, it's closed. So they're supposed to be open till 1 o'clock. No, they're closed at 11. So you have to go back and find them open. Once they're open, sometimes they're out of cards. And so then they say, come back at 10, come back in the morning. So you have to go back. And then once you get your card and you log on, the connection is actually pretty efficient. It's pretty good. But you'll find some sites that are, I forgot the word they would use, but basically, outlawed. And they're weird sites, like booking.com. They eliminate booking.com. You cannot go on booking.com. So, but if you're just trying to do email, if you're just trying to use Wi-Fi for WhatsApp, which is that great free app that lets you communicate with people using Wi-Fi, then it's very easy. Then you can definitely hook onto the Wi-Fi, and you'll be in good shape. Okay, so the next question, then this was a really good question. Someone asked me, they said, we travel to have fun. Like, who doesn't? Like, we go on vacation to have fun, to make memories, to have a good time. But we also want to make a difference. So the question is, what's the best thing we can do? So I say the best thing you can do is tip well and take donations. I did a whole video on donations. The video is called How to Make a Big Difference on Your Trip to Cuba, and it's right there on my Rare Finds Travel YouTube channel. But in general, to know that people are surprised to hear what they really need. Electronics is something that they really need. So if you have an old cell phone that you've updated and you've gotten like the new iPhone 10 and you have a 6 or a 5 sitting around, then just take that. If your teenager drops their phone and cracks the screen and you have to get a new one, well, then just pay to have it rescreened, get all the data off, and take that. They really are so appreciative because it's very hard for them to get their hands on any kind of tech. So old cell phones, old tablets, even old laptops, and you might have one at home, or a lot of people work for companies that have like a laptop exchange program. So they have used laptops that are just sitting there because they've upgraded. So their company has like the latest, fastest laptops. And then you can just take that down there. Those are really very much appreciated. And also flash drives, all kinds of flash drives, the bigger, the better. Those little thumb drives, they're really important because they use those to store media and entertainment because they can't afford to have it streamed all of the time. So they store like a week or a month at a time on these flash drives. So flash drives are super important for their lifestyle down there. Also medicines. Medicines are really important. And we're not talking fancy things. We're talking like Tylenol, and we're talking Band-Aids and Neosporin and things like that. O'Neilio, my guide, his wife is a doctor down there. And so oncology cream, any kind of medicine is great. I don't mean prescriptions and things. I mean like over-the-counter medicine, things that we think we go to the CVS and pick up, but for them it's expensive and sometimes not even available. And then the other thing are personal items, and that can be anything from sunblock to condoms to feminine products to all kinds of things. Also just household items, Gorilla Glue and duct tape, things that are very, very useful. These are very hard for them to find down there. And let's see what else. People take things for all kinds of clothing, used clothing, new clothing, toys, school supplies. You can do some pencils, more than like Play-Doh, art stuff. That's great. And speaking of art stuff, one of the most rewarding things for people to take, I think, are things to support their hobbies here at home. Like I have a woman who's an artist here at home, and she took these really beautiful brand new paintbrushes to give to artists down in Havana. That was a tearjerker. And then there was a guy who went on one of my trips, and he's a cyclist at home, so he took all kinds of supplies for Jorge, the bike guide, because we were going to go on the bike tour, and Jorge was really appreciative because it's hard to find tube glue and bike lights down there in Havana. So that was awesome. So that's a way you can make a really big difference down there in Cuba. Okay, so that covers a lot of the questions, some of which I covered before, but then some new ones that had come in. If you have more questions, please don't be shy. I'm here to help. I want to help you really up your understanding of what Cuba is like so that you can feel confident and go there, because it's just an experience I don't want you to miss. If you could go with us, we would love to have you join one of our trips. So let me take a minute before we close here to tell you what we have. We've already gone on this trip, hugely successful. You've seen some of my, we call them testimonials, some of my videos that people who went on my last trip made for me, and really incredible experiences. So we opened 3 new trips for 2020, and these are 5-day, 4-night trips. They include almost everything, including your lodging in Havana, almost all of your meals, private driver, private guide, and all of these rare experiences that we picked out that we just love, both in Havana and outside of Havana. So you have 5 days. Most of the time we're actually in Havana or around. You get as far as over by the fort, and you see the old Soviet missiles. You get out to these parks way out in Vedado, these beautiful leafy city parks where they have the voodoo religion out there. You have all along the Malecon, and of course all over Old Town. So you have lodging, you have food, you have drivers, and you have me there on site. So I am there 24/7 with you. And I can help you with any questions. Really, you know, when you go off on your own, you can come back and touch base and ask any questions and then go back out. So it really gives you just a little bit of security that you were there as a group. And our groups have worked out really, really well. It's $2,800 per person. If you're not a group person and you really want to go on your own, then here's some other options. You can actually create your own group. We have a group in Lambertville, here where my office is, and they heard about this. So there's a whole group of them going next winter, and they're just going to take over the casa. You can go with as few as 6 people. You can go with as many as 10, but we have to talk about what the 8 is kind of ideal, but 6 to 8 is easy. 10 works under certain conditions because 2 of the rooms are connected. Long story short, 2 of the rooms are connected. So you'd have to have a group within your group that could share a bathroom. But anyway, so you can create your own group. You can also create your own family group. One of my very, very best trips to Havana was when I hosted my extended family down there for Christmas a couple of years ago. And it was just the most amazing experience. Excuse me. It was easy to fly everyone into. The ones I sent in Colorado were a little more challenging, but it's easy to get people into. We were there over actually Christmas Day. We actually cooked. We went on a black market walk, and we actually bought ingredients off of the black market, and we came back to the casa and we made dinner, and we served it up on our rooftop under these Christmas lights. It was great, and we invited the doorman and we invited the houseboys. So we really had this kind of a real mix of our new friends and our old family together. And anyway, it was great. So to do this as an extended family, even with kids and grandparents, like it's all super. Or you can do a private trip. If it's just you and your spouse, or you and your college roommate, we can also work that out. And in that case, you wouldn't have exclusive use of the casa. You would have a room in the casa, but you'd have the same casa, the same staff, and you could have the same itinerary exactly. And then that would be great. And you could do it, with just one other person, or you could do it with just yourself. You could go solo, which I have done, and I can show you how to do. And you won't feel alone because you can have my guide with you all of the time. I mean, he'll go stay with his family at night, and at that point you'll be in the house, in the casa with the staff there. But all day you can have him with you. So it's not as if you are like bumping around on your own and you're going to get lost. So you can even go solo, and I'm here to tell you that it works. I've done it, and I can show you how. And the final thing you can do is if you want something different than the itinerary that we have picked, which we've picked like the best 5 days, if you want something different, then you can work with us and we'll design whatever you want. You can go down to Trinidad, you can go to the Bay of Pigs. You don't do beach vacations, but you definitely can do like a half day of like snorkeling or diving. There's some incredible dive sites that are by the Bay of Pigs, or there's snorkeling that's right offshore. Still, the waters are beautiful because they've been virtually untouched. They've been very protected. So unlike reefs in other part of the world that have gotten a lot of traffic, these are protected, pretty protected and pristine. So there's a lot that you can do. You can even stay out in Pino del Rio. So if you don't want to do that just for a day trip, you can stay out there. There's caves, there's ranches and horseback riding. There's like all kinds of things, campesinos out there. And there's also different areas of Havana you can stay in. I had people go for a longer trip in Havana, and they stay in Old Town part of the time, and they stay in Vedado part of the time. So lots of choices. You can join our trip. You can create one of your own. You can create your own group. You can go solo. There's lots of choices, but the magic of Havana and Cuba is brilliant, and I really hope that you get a chance to experience it. So thanks for tuning in. I hope I helped. 609-923-0304 is my number. melanie@rarefindstravel.com is my email, and I am here to help however I can get you to Vamos a Cuba.